Welcome back to the news at 10. The federal government has been asked to declare a state of emergency on erosion in Anambra State as the devastation is becoming worrisome. Governor Willie Obiano made the call while inspecting ongoing reclamation work in Obosi, Idemili North local government area, where the effects of erosion has left many residents homeless.
With about 900 erosion sites scattered around Anambra State, the state governor appears to be taking the bull by the horn to ensure that the reclamation program does not fail. That's what has drawn him to inspect the reclamation of portions of land not yet washed away at the erosion site at Oduma Layout in Obosi, Idemili North local government area of the state. This is what the persistent heavy rains in July has left in its wake. First, a two-story building completely swallowed and the major road cut in two and leaving other houses at risk. The Obosi site is among the 12 new sites where the World Bank is intervening. But the state government says local intervention measures is necessary to salvage the situation.
We are the smallest because while Lagos is growing into the Atlantic Ocean, Anambra is shrinking from erosion. I've asked the federal government to declare state of emergency on erosion on Anambra so that they can vote money for us to do this work. Erosion money is not easy to come by because it's expensive. However, on our own, we've been able to work with United Nations to get 12 new more sites that work will be done. And this site is one of them. But because of the urgency, I have to intervene very urgently.
The traditional ruler of Obosi Kingdom and the transition chairman for Idemili North local government area are pleased with the timely intervention.
We have you, and we know by the time you complete another 4 years, Anambra State will be another London. What you have done so far has shown that you have so much for the people of Anambra and people of Idemili North. We are particularly very happy and wish to say, continue your good work.
The inspection train also toured Onitsha to inspect the 1.2-kilometer Oseokodo Market Road, which is nearing completion.
Local government workers and pensioners across the country are reacting to the disbursement of the Paris Club funds from the federal government. In Kwara and Ekiti State, they pointed out that the sum is inadequate, and also pensioners in Ekiti State called for judicious use of the funds.
The federal government recently released the second tranche of the Paris Club funds, and the Kwara state government, of the 5 billion naira received, offered 1 billion naira to workers of the local governments to offset part of their salary arrears, which ranges from 4 to 9 months. This sum, according to various unions, which include medical workers and local government employees, is inadequate.
We understood that 75% of this money should be made to pay the arrears of workers at the local government as for their salaries.
Reacting, the state government, through the senior special assistant on media to the governor, explained that it will take about 15 billion naira actually to settle the arrears, and pleaded with them to be patient.
His Excellency Governor Fattah Ahmed will meet with all stakeholders, NUT, NOLGE, the tertiary institutions, NLC, JNC, and stakeholder leaders of thought in the state, and table to them, of this 5.1 billion, this is the amount that we want to use to pay salaries and pensions. How do we share it?
And in Ekiti State, the Nigeria Union of Pensioners, Ekiti State Council, has advised Governor Ayo Fayose to make judicious use of the released Paris Club funds.
We call on Ekiti State government to use the bulk of this and subsequent windfalls from the federal government to augment the already accumulated savings for gratuity payments, to start reducing the outstanding arrears of gratuities which are accumulated from July 12 up to date.
They also commended the federal government for directing the 36 states of the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory, to use at least 75% of the refund to pay the arrears of workers' salaries and the pensioners' benefits.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyeama, is unhappy about the poor trade relations among African countries. Now, speaking when he met a delegation of businessmen from Mali in Abuja, Mr. Onyeama said the ministry will push for the increased Nigerian exports across the world. His comment is in reaction to the decision by Malian authorities to buy 400 made-in-Nigeria vehicles for the expansion of transport business in their country. And he called for increased regional cooperation within the West African sub-region.
Only about 10% of trade relations by African countries is carried out amongst African countries within the continent. So almost 90% of our trade relations are with countries outside the continent. And you can imagine the very negative impact this has, on growth on our continent, job promotion on our continent, and wealth creation on our continent. So we have a long way. Our desideratum, our ideal, is to have greater trade amongst us in Africa. Hence, the Continental Free Trade Area is a move in that direction, and it shows the growing political will of African leaders. We have realized that we really can be the masters of our own destiny.
Let's take a look at some business news now. Here's Anne Waudu.
You first. First Bank.
Thank you, Onyeama, and welcome to Business News. Experts are discussing key challenges of planning, designing and funding facing Africa's infrastructural development. But ahead of a summit in Lagos next week, a development expert, Mr. Bankole Eniola, says a deal room of pipeline projects worth several billions of dollars has now been opened to support projects return-oriented and socially beneficial. Mr. Eniola was speaking on Channels Television Business Morning today.
The deal room for this year, we have $2.3 billion worth of transactions coming into our deal room. So, and this is for the European and American investors who are always saying, oh, we don't think deals are coming out of Nigeria. We are saying we have $2.3 billion worth of deals coming into the deal room, and it cuts across different sectors from transportation to energy, from energy to some kind of fast-moving consumer goods. So we have all kinds of projects and transactions coming into the deal room. And that also speaks to our government or the policymakers to say, okay, from the public authority side, probably we have less than 20% of transactions that makes enough sense to get into the deal room. So majority of the transactions coming into the deal room this year is basically private sector driven transactions. The next step for us is to be able to tell the policymakers that our collaborative working going forward can increase the deal pipeline, and once the deal pipeline is increased, you can begin to attract more revenue for some of these big projects.
Well, the Central Bank of Nigeria has offered 6- and 12-month Treasury bills at yields higher than the country's current inflation rate of 16.1% to investors. And this is in a bid to attract more inflow of foreign exchange into Nigeria. The bank sold 145.96 billion naira of the 12-month bill, 26.60 billion naira of the 6-month paper, and 32.40 billion of the 3-month paper today. In its last auction that happened on Wednesday this week, the CBN sold a total of 204.96 billion naira in Treasury bills and paid 13.42% for the 3-month bill, 17.39% for the 6-month bill, while the bank's 1-year paper fetched 18.54%. The benchmark index of the Nigerian Stock Exchange went above the 34,000 level today following strong performance from banking and industrial bellwethers. Let's hear more now from Chimeze Obiwago.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. The Nigerian equities market closed the last trading session of the week on a high, capping a full week of positive close for the market. All-share index advanced by 0.96%, driven by the industrial goods sector, which gained an impressive 4.74%, followed by the banking index, which, despite the potential negative impact of the court order mandating 7 banks to remit $793.2 million, managed a tidy 1.56% gain. Oil and gas, as well as consumer goods sectors, were the major recipients of investors' negative sentiments, as both sectors lost 0.03% and 0.24% each. Now, the positive half-year results by Lafarge, WAPCO, and the potentials for interim dividend by banks were the major drivers of the market. Looking at the price movement chart, Lafarge moved the most, gaining 9.89%. However, Berger Paints led the price decliners by 4.92%. Today's market value is also impressive. Over 5 billion naira was made and about 377 shares were traded. The half-year earnings season is currently living up to investors' expectations. All eyes will, however, focus on the MPC meeting, which will take place on Monday and Tuesday next week, as key rate decisions are announced. And that was the Stock Market Report. I'm Chimeze Obiwago.
Thanks a lot, Chimeze. Well, let's now show you how figures from leading global stock markets ended today. They ended the week mostly negative as fresh corporate earnings failed to boost sentiments, plus the high euro exchange rate to Asian currencies. And that's business news on the last trading day of the week. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Anne Nwawado. The rest of the news at 10 continues with Ijoma.
You first. First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Anne. The Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, ALGON, has commended the federal government for releasing the second tranche of the Paris Club refunds to states. The association says the refund will help alleviate the sufferings of workers who in some states are owed salaries for several months. They also renewed their calls for full autonomy to be granted to the third tier of government.
The NEC in section commended the effort of the federal government to reduce the pains of Nigerians at this critical period of economic recession, particularly the release of the second tranche of the Paris Club refund. The meeting re-echoed the demand for local government full autonomy in all the states of the Federation. It commended the few states that granted autonomy to their local government councils. You see, for people to feel the impact of government more, full autonomy must be granted to the local government. If we have full autonomy, the question of these salaries will no longer be there. If we have full autonomy, and don't forget one thing, it is very important, finance is the problem. Finance is the problem. If we have full autonomy and the necessary money that's supposed to come from the federal government does not come, it will still be the same problem. But if we have enough money with whatever we can generate at the local government level, there won't be problem. And you can see that things will be going on fine.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Minister of Youth and Sports Solomon Dalong inaugurates newly elected boards of federations. That's on sports. Please stay with us.